You're not using StreamYard. You're not using
No, I
StreamYard at all.
don't. And we're live. So hello everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Architecture Weekly YouTube channel. And today we're something special because we're not talking about architecture. Well, we kind of do, but it's the architecture of teams and how like engineering managers can help form the team, support the healthy state, and so on. And who is helping me with that today? It's Vitaly Sharovatov, a mentor, an engineering manager, and a developer advocate at Case nowadays. Hello, Vitaly.
Hello, Vladimir. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. So, Vitaly, can you please just do a short introduction of yourself so like people better know who we're talking with?
Yeah, sure. I've been in IT for almost 23 years now. My first entry in my resume was 22 years ago. I've been doing 13 years. I've spent 13 years on writing JavaScript and evolving into an engineering manager, essentially. Then I switched to management completely, and for the last 8 or 9 years, I've been doing that. Plus, I've started 7 years ago, I think I started teaching and mentoring newbies and new joiners to management. And for the last 2 years, I've been also doing developer advocacy. So I'm giving talks, I'm writing articles, I'm discussing everything regarding our product with the communities that we focus on. So it was quite a journey for me already.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. Okay, today we're talking about the team dynamics, right? And how the team is different from a working group. But let's first of all start with why do we want teams in the first place? Why it's so important?
Oh, sure, yeah. I think that it's not that I think, I know that teams as the concept emerged, I think it was 400,000 years ago when we started hunting big animals and when we started living in in small groups, actually, in groups from 7 to 30, 40 people maximum. And in those groups, team behavior was already emerging, so that some members of the groups were cooking stuff, some members were hunting, some members were doing something else. So first, specialization occurred, and then groups evolved, and we evolved as social animals, so that we relied in our evolution on teams being the basis of our survival and the core of our survival. We had to rely on each other in those teams, so that we know that those folks who were hunting would bring some prey, and we know that if we rely on someone keeping fire, that the fire will still be on when we wake up. And this concept of teams was following us throughout our evolution. And when we joined as teams into something bigger, into countries or tribes or whatever, we still were parts of our teams. So my thesis is that teams are the core of our evolution. And that is why teams are so powerful. There is this concept that we in a team are much bigger than we separately. So if it's just 10 people in a group, they can produce much less than if they are a team.
Okay, so you're saying that this is deep inside our biological nature, right? So behaving as a group of people, like working on the same thing together. But what is the academic definition of the team? Like how can you distinguish the team from just people gathered in the same place?
Yeah, sure. So team is a group of individuals who are interdependent and whose work requires no coordination from anywhere. So if we, let's say you, I, and someone else are just waiting for a bus, staying on the bus stop, we are just a group. We have some goal to have our bus, to wait for our bus, but we don't rely upon each other. We are not interdependent in this process of waiting. So then we are just a group. But if you, I, and someone else decide to find a transport to transport us somewhere else, then we are showing first signs of being a team. Because we can decide that you go this place, I go another place, and the third person goes somewhere else to find this transport. So in this case, this group of three of us becomes a team because we have a common goal and we are interdependent.
Okay, so team differs from the working group by having a goal and to relying upon each other to achieve those goals. So basically, none of the members of the group of the team can't achieve the goal by their own, right?
Exactly.
So they need to coordinate, to collaborate, and to communicate to each other.
In the IT, the perfect example of a team is a cross-functional group of people. So let's say front-ender, back-ender, maybe a designer or someone else.
An architect?
An architect, yeah. So who can together produce some value for the client. That is their purpose. That is the reason why the whole team was just assembled.
This is frequently referred to as an agile team, right? So like 5 to 7 people who's working on, a product or part of the product and bringing value to the client.
Yeah, that is why agile. I think that is the reason why Agile Manifesto and then all the forthcoming work picked teams as the units and as the main concept of work, which can work, because teams can actually produce value for the client. And this is the main thing in Agile. So you as a team produce something, you get the feedback from the client, and you iterate upon what you've got.
Okay, we have an example of the thing that is called a team. We will dive into this deeper. But what is the opposite? What's not a team in like IT companies? What you have observed?
Oh yeah, sure. There are plenty of companies which work is based on groups. Let's say outstaffing companies who rent, let's say, developers or architects or whoever, rent employees to other companies. So you can have a room with 8 people. They're all going to be backenders or frontenders or even mixed specialization. They talk to each other. They go to a coffee shop nearby. They drink beer after work, but they are not a team because they do not have a shared purpose and they are not interdependent. One backender is rented to one company, another frontender is rented to another company. They do not work on something, on one thing. They do not hunt the same prey. They do not bring value to the same client.
Yeah, but do you think that's correct to think about people in service companies or body shops or outstaff companies as a proper place of having a team discussion? Because when they're like rented out to the particular company, they become the part of the team in this second company, right? So their team exists that has this member, but it's like not just their mother company.
Yeah, you asked for examples of groups which are not teams, and for examples of businesses which operate based not on teams but on groups. The outstaffing company is the perfect example like that. There are multiple companies who think they have teams, but they don't. Let's say every single company which has silos where you have front-end so-called team, back-end so-called team, design so-called team, or architect so-called team, they do not have those teams. They have groups. Because these teams, they do not share the same purpose. These people in those groups, they can be working on multiple different products.
Okay, got it. Well, this is a clear concept. Like you have we call them community, right? So you can belong to a team where you bring value to the client, but you also a part of the community, like front-end developers or mobile developers. You're not a team, but you're sharing the information. Like like on my project, I learned this thing. Hey, folks, see what we learned. And
That's a good concept. That's a good concept, and it's quite old as well. I think the first. Oh, I honestly can't remember where I saw it happening first in the history of human race, but there were multiple cases throughout our history where people of the same specialization started sharing knowledge.
A guild, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but even much further down our history, in our history, we had examples like that. But yeah, you're right.
Okay, cool. What I'm interested about in the cases where like you think you have a team, like it fits your definition because they work on a particular product together for a single client or for group of customers, and like the engineering manager there, like several developers, like they're interdependent, but still they're not behaving as a team because every person is doing their own work. It's like for the same client, but they do like their own project. Can we call them a team?
It's a matter of perceiving the meaning of the word. I would say that there are good teams and there are bad teams, and bad teams usually look like groups, almost like groups. They still can work on a single product, but there might be things like competition. Because when you are, consider this example from our ancient history, when there were hunters and there were people who were cooking stuff. They couldn't compete. They didn't compete. Why would they compete on anything, right? They were striving to survive and to feed their kids and to produce more offsprings. So competition is one of the things which destroys team. Maybe not fully destroys the team, but diminishes the team significantly. So whenever an engineering manager introduces concepts like individual bonuses, or when people know that they are of different grades within the team, that people know that they're very different, that when they see they are treated as individuals or treated differently, then the whole emergent property of this significant increase of productivity and performance that teams have, it just diminishes. So whenever you have, let's say the very first example of that would be when you, being an engineering manager or CTO or whoever, distribute tasks between members of the group. That's from one point of view, that decreases motivation because people on the team should be autonomous as much as possible within the given constraints. So you have the budget constraint, you have the purpose, which can be perceived as a constraint. We're not doing something for the rocket launch, we're doing something for our clients. So there are constraints, yes, but people on the team, on a proper team, should be as autonomous as possible. So first thing, there should be no competition, not to destroy the team. The second thing, there should be proper autonomy. So you shouldn't assign tasks to people, because then you are coordinating their behavior. And by definition, teams do not need coordination of efforts within the team. Teams are quite autonomous to coordinate the efforts by themselves.
Okay. Here's the interesting thing. So like imagine you have a roadmap that is brought up by product managers, so by any people who are like speaking to the client, or they have a business strategy in mind and so on, and they come to the team of software developers and saying, hey, here are like the top 5 projects that we want to work on, like not necessarily in parallel, but like whatever, but in some reasonable time, please give us that. So how do you see the proper team will behave from that perspective? Like I'm not forcing like EM distributing tasks and so on, but you have a roadmap, you're as a team, like how a good team behaves in that moment.
I would say the proper team would gather and decide how these problems should be tackled. So as you're actually providing quite a decent example from what I've seen during my years of consultancy and mentorship. There's just 5 problems brought to the team. They are high priority, all of them, otherwise they wouldn't be brought. And so the team, with the help of the product manager, can decide which one to pick first, or if it is required by the client or by some other market forces, to do all of them together. So the team decides what to do first with help of consultancy of a product manager. Then they decide if they're going to be working together or in pairs or individually on the problems. And then they decide how to actually solve those problems. Because as you know, any problem can be solved in multiple ways. You can, and you need proper information and proper feedback from the members of the team on to provide enough diversity of options how to solve that problem. So there are, if people are different on the team, and that's another good example, when you have diverse team, when people are different in the team, one can bring an idea that this problem should be solved by a proof of concept, and then we should gather feedback from the client if the client wants it. And then the product manager can agree or disagree with that approach. Another member of the team can say, oh no, sorry, mate, we need to do it properly from the start. They can have a healthy discussion. They can work out the proper approach, and the proper is very different all the time, the proper approach to tackling this particular problem. And if the product manager thinks that the constraints are maintained and satisfied, and the solution, the proposed solution to the problem is good, then the team does it. And again, it's up to them, due to their autonomy, to decide how to do it. If product manager, let's say, says this is the highest priority possible, possibly some regulation or some other occurrence, some other event from the outer world which brought this task to the team, then the whole team can say, well, you know what, we're going to do it with as less utilization as possible. We're just going to sit with work in progress equals 1. We sit all together on this task, maybe even in a mob session, and do it as soon as possible. So the product manager is the provider of as much information as it is needed to propose some changes to the system. He proposes the changes, product manager agrees if the constraints are maintained, and then the team does it as they see fit. And again, when the team is responsible for catching the spray or for delivering the value to the client, they know that it is not a one-off thing. They know that this product they're building will have to be supported later. So they will think of total cost of ownership or some other way of thinking about the changes they are about to introduce to the system.
Okay, thank you very much for this insight. Folks who is watching right now online or watching it when it's on YouTube, can you please go to the comment section and say, like, according to the definition that Vitaly gave, do you have a team? And and please describe your setup, how it's working for you, like how you're managing the task. Do you have a team in the first place? Okay, cool. Thank you. We have a question.
I have another thing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat from Artem. Hello, Artem.
Hello.
Like, what do you think about the managerial role in the team? Like, should manager be as a part of the team, or it's like some supervisor? Like, what do you think?
Oh, it's very interesting. From one side, there is plenty of research saying that any managerial badge, role, whatever you call it, managerial hat that you have, separates you from the team. If essentially it's just going to separate you anyway. It's like, you know, there are those anecdotes that as soon as you are a team lead or an engineering manager, folks won't invite you to the pub. Those folks that you've been just working with for ages, right? They won't invite you to the pub anymore. That I would say
that doesn't happen to me. Like,
yeah,
I always go with the team and drink beer.
That's the sign of bad management culture. But once again, there is plenty of research showing that as soon as you show up in a different role, you are perceived differently. We have this in-group bias and out-group prejudice, in-group favoritism and out-group prejudice.
That's definitely true. Yeah, but by the way, Vitaly is referring to a lot of papers, like, already. So we will try to include the links down below in the description. So,
I would say that in the ideal world that I would love to live in, managers are just different type of a specialist within the team. That's how I try to work. That's how I try to approach everything I do. So I'm just saying to my folks, whenever I coach someone or whatever I do, I am just a specialist in what I know best. And you can always come to me and talk to me. I am here not to manage you, but to help you build the system you're satisfied with. Pardon me. If I am the backender, I will know what's best for the backend. If I am a manager, I know how to set up processes so that we have as less waste and as much value as soon as possible to the satisfaction of the clients and the members of the team. I would say that I personally like what's being praised as servant leadership, but I dislike the word servant. It's manager, it's like manager, friend, servant, somewhere in between. You should be focused on being the part of the team. You will have a difficult time being that, because most developers I know of, they still see so much stupidity from different managers, so that they perceive pretty much every single manager as, all right, he's a manager now. He's not one of us anymore.
Yeah,
so you will have hard times. Yes.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Like I do share this this idea of like, hey, here I'm not to commend you, but to help you work better, because like my success is your success. Basically, I will be treated by the success of my team. So that's a good attitude. But yeah, indeed, there are a lot of folks out there who call them managers and who are not leaders. They want to be bosses who will, steal all the achievements from the team and assign them to themselves, and all their failures, they won't accept responsibility for that. They will say they have a bad team.
Yeah.
And that's a very sad picture.
And I pity those managers, because I am 100% sure, and I've seen this plenty of time in my mentorship career, when managers try to command and be bosses out of fear. They have just been assigned an engineering manager position to this position. They do not know how management works. They are not taught properly. They are afraid that the team will fail, that there will be bugs on production, there will be something else, and they try to intervene everywhere. Like I have, let's say, to have 2 one-on-ones every week with each person, to have code review for each task going on production, to control how every single thing is done. And it's a nightmare. They burn out, they become even more angry. They see bugs or they see some issues with tasks, and they do not realize that people are not robots. They can't be as productive, like normally productive. They are either high productive or low productive, sometimes normally productive. And so, yeah, it's a sad picture. It's a sad picture that managers are not taught well in our industry for some strange reason.
Well, maybe because of this perception of like being manager is like abandoning technical things, not doing code anymore, and so on. And there's also a phenomena, I don't remember who told me that, but there's a phenomena of managerial vacuum. Like if you're decent enough and like you look like you're understanding something about people, there's always a vacuum, a space of managerial roles that is very hard to fill with decent people. And once you're decent enough, this space, it will pull your back. I remember that was my boss in the previous workplace. So it just pulls you up to this managerial position, and it's very hard to go back. But that's a different topic. Okay, we have a next question. I actually really like that that Artem is highlighting here. So manager, even being the leader, right, and being helpful person, part of the team, he still has this power of even not making the ultimate decision of promoting somebody, but still very influential on this just manner, right? So I have a choice, like this person is getting the promotion to a senior developer this year, and this is not. And like the same with the compensation, or I don't know, some perks, or even the projects. I can influence who is working on which projects. Like I can intervene a little bit in the teamwork and so on. And by the way, I have reasons to do that, because like, for example, I want somebody to advance their skills in some particular field, and like that's beneficial for everybody. So I have reasons. So the question here is like, how we can retain the trust of the team into the manager with the fact that the manager still has the power to promote particular people.
Very, very good question. Thank you, Artyom. I would say that trust and fairness are two very interesting concepts. Each one has, I've read 90 research articles on trust alone, and something like 20 on fairness. And Artem is highlighting quite good examples where the perception of unfairness or the feeling of unfairness could emerge in the team. So if Bob sees that I'm favoring Alice for some reason, he thinks I'm favoring Alice. Of course, he will think that I am unfair to Bob. And of course, he will think that I'm doing, like I have selected Alice for some particular reasons. And feeling of unfairness will always toggle distrust. It always does it. As soon as you think that this person treats you unfairly, you stop trusting him. Maybe not fully, but your trust diminishes. I would say that in the ideal world, in a very ideal world, salaries as the concept which draws our mental attention, just any attention, should go away. What I mean by that is that if there are, let's say, 5 developers on the team, and they each of them earns a very decent salary according to the market. Let's say, for example, 100K in Europe. It's a good salary for the market, for pretty much all the countries there. In this ideal case, if their salary is just increased every year for this inflation percent, right, and some markets rising percent, then the potential reasons for unfairness or for the perception of unfairness might go away completely. If we abandon the principle of favoring individuals, of promoting individuals, or giving pay rises to individuals rather than teams, this perception of unfairness will go away. I fully understand and comprehend that this is very hard in terms of social dynamics. This is very hard to do, even if you have a full buy-in from upper management. If the upper management gives you, let's say, a lump of cash every month, or every year, they say, okay, here's your 1 mil per month, you spend it on your team as you wish, and you decide, okay, I have 10 people, 100K each one of them. There still be hard times for you because not all people are used to being treated fairly. So some people can say, you know what? I am actually more performant than Joe. Why does Joe get the same 100K? So this culture
that happens all the time. Like people, first of all, they will compare like any metric that you would imagine to just say like I am better than Joe.
Yeah. And this is, it's a vicious circle. As soon as you have this comparison, you in most cases, you try to fix it by, if you think that Joe actually is more performant, if you're just thinking it, you will raise his salary, you will raise his wage. And this will yield more intransparency and more feeling of unfairness potentially. So you're in this vicious circle then. I must say and must admit, I never had teams where I could have transparent salaries and where the culture of the team was as grown up, as mature as possible, so that I could have everyone earning the same, above market, but the same. I could never have it. I just know that in terms of the psychology, if those people working on a team were mature, then they will not think about the salaries anymore. But again, it's very hard to do.
Well, it's a very complex topic because it involves like, how do you measure the performance? How do you provide the transparency? How do you treat the psychological aspects? How do you handle the perception of justice? Because it may differ a little bit from different perspectives. And it is very hard to justify, like saying, hey, like we measure the performance that way, and according to that metric, this guy is doing better than this guy, or this girl is outperforming the whole team, and so on and so on. And then like if she's outperforming like 100%, like do we have the double of the compensation? Well, we don't. We just pay like additional 10%.
Hard. And if we start measuring individual performance, we are destroying our team as well, because we are valuing individuals rather than team completely. What
Yeah,
I would say, yeah.
there's a caveat here. Like as soon as you treat, you have the same compensation review for the whole team, immediately, the same moment. Wait a second, I'll formulate. The people will start chasing the team with the top performance because like those teams get better compensation, and it creates the whole different dynamics, but across the whole organization. So that's the context of
into team dynamic. Yeah,
yeah.
It's very interesting. There are a few companies that I'm researching now. They are called employee-owned companies. At least they state that their culture is so mature that people vote for salaries of each other. It's an interesting approach.
I know there's a company in Finland called Futurize, and they have all the financial transparency, like all the financial reports, all the salaries, including CEO, like everybody. That's very interesting example. But
that's an interesting thing to research. But again, it's not. It's interesting to observe how they work. But the most interesting thing is how they got to this state. Because
I think they started like that. So that wasn't a change.
Maybe that's the only way to have such a culture. Maybe there is no proper way to evolve culture to this state. I am not sure.
I don't know. That's an interesting question, but out of topic today. Okay, let's get back to the team. So let's start from the beginning. Like imagine like you're the first engineer, or you're an engineering manager for the team. You know kind of the scope of the product, and you start hiring people, right? So what do you look for in these new members? Like there's no company culture, it's just for people. There's no team culture. What do you look for?
This is the most interesting part in hiring, that it will be subjective pretty much always, even with all those matrices of competence, etc., etc. It's still going to be subjective. And I tend to lean towards the approach of hiring people who are different from me, but whom I like. And I admit that by saying I like doesn't mean that we are fans of the same sports club, or we love kittens as I love kittens, or we share some other passions, like passion towards jazz or classical music. No, I like as people, because my partner is very different from mine. My daughter is very different from mine, and yet I love them. So I try to hire people that I have this gut feeling that we will work together to our mutual and to our team benefit. And this cannot be deduced into any characteristics at all, because I worked in teams where people were so different, and other colleagues were asking, how the hell can you work with such a person? Or how the hell did you hire her or him? I have no idea, honestly. I think this is subjective and evolving something in your brain. When you work with so many people for so many years, your neural network starts capturing something which I can't even explain, something that shows.
Excuse me. Have you read any books or research papers on like what makes people good team players, independent of the area of IT or industry they're working in? Do you have any examples?
It's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. Pedagogy and andragogy studies this a lot, and what they say is that good work makes teams. So essentially, there were multiple good scientists in pedagogy field who said that as soon as people overcome something together, they become closer. As soon as they have their good feedback, their appraisal from clients or from sports manager or whichever their field is, they bond. Sometimes they expel members of the team. Like you can't be there is no way you're going to be working with anyone, right? There will be people whom you can't work with whom you can't work. And yet teams bond by working. So the hypothesis that I share is that you find people who you think you will work well with, and you provide good conditions for them to show their excellence and to help each other and to build something. And I had one particularly interesting experiment a few years ago. I had this school, so-called school, of Java development. I brought 6 people in a company, brought them in a company, and they were sitting for 8 hours every day, except for the weekend. They were learning Java with 2 hours of attention per day from our Java mentor from our company. And they bonded so much because the atmosphere was really good. And once again, I cannot explain what was good in the atmosphere. I can only explain what wasn't bad in the atmosphere. I set it up so that they didn't compete. I told them that we would hire every single one of them. And the criteria for success for the project, for this educational project, was that I managed to help them all grow, not 1, not 2, not 3. There will be no filtering out of people, whatever. I would help them all. And this worked really well. We hired 5 people from them. One just quit the team because he had divorce coming or something like that. Something crazy was happening in his life and he had to quit. So the team bonded really well. I would say that if you find people who share your passion towards what you're doing.
Excuse me, but in the example that you shared, like they were not trying to achieve the same goal, right?
They were.
No. It wasn't a common goal. It was a goal for
we were building a project. We were building a project while learning, all of us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought the goal was to, get into the company. But if they're building a project,
that was a side goal. Yeah, I mean, if we built the project properly and if we showed the company, if I show the company my financial perspectives, like we're going to be saving money, we're going to be this and that, and I was showing this, and the folks whom I brought to the company to learn and build these projects, they had to show that the project was of good quality, because that company was outsourcing company, and essentially they wanted to see if this new team could actually do anything. And so it's pretty much what I have with a team of juniors. We're studying front end now. We assembled our team, 8 of us, 1 girl left, so it's 7 of us, and we're just learning JavaScript. We share the passion for learning here. We do not have any project, we do not have any goal. It's a weird type of a team. But anyway, so when you are hiring a team, a new team, we're assembling a new team for a product company, I would say the first thing is that people should be sharing the passion towards what you're doing. If you have a non-profit for helping stray animals, they should love animals. If you have a company which, let's say some pizza delivery franchise IT company, right? People they need to want every single person on our planet or our country to be able to order good pizza. They need to share this purpose, as Daniel Pink says in his famous Drive book, that purpose is the main motivator for them to try to bond, for them to actually work together and deliver something.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So yeah, there are a couple of additional books for that. You can read the Leaders It Last by Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek, perfect one. Thank you.
Yeah. He covers very well this, purpose thing in teams. But I would like to get back to this hiring thing. So you mentioned that, like, if you hire some people that you have a gut feeling for, working together well, and give them challenging tasks that they would overcome, they would become a team. Yeah, I would believe that. However, there's literature that you can talk with people and find out if they will be doing good team players, because obviously there are people out there who won't be good team players after any challenge you will give them. Like if you just take sociopath or psychopaths, like that's impossible. So what I'm saying,
another example.
One moment. So there are obvious examples of people you won't be able to work with, but there's another methodology There's a book called The Ideal Team Player. I'm going to share the screen for 1 second. So here it is. So The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. I read it like
Good one.
several years ago. And what it basically says is that like if you have three traits in the person you want to hire, like being hungry, being humble, and being smart, then that person will make a good team player. And what they say in the book is that like if you're hungry, like if you need something to achieve, like you're looking for an achievement. If you're humble, you're not looking down to the other people, like you treat yourself as everybody else. That's a good one, right? And the third one is if you're smart, not being a theoretical physicist, but like socially smart, being able to talk to people and be able to recognize their emotions, being empathic, and so on. So then probably you will make a good team player. So that's a good book. I'm trying to to use it. But what's your opinion on this methodology?
I love this approach, but I don't think it's binary. It's like or discrete. It's like you're either a good team player or you're a bad team player. It's always this multiple states you can be in. So what I would say that there is multiple research in pedagogy again that, let's say Makarenko, he wrote a book, his pedagogical poem in 1923. He started this school for kids who were actually thieves, murderers, and they actually committed plenty of crimes. He had not an indefinite budget, but he had indefinite time to make them good team players. So what I can say is that first, your personal leadership strength matters. If you know you can help people overcome their fears. I saw one person once in a bank on the interview. He was so tired of work. Literally, he came to this bank to leave to work till his pension. So he was tired of work. He would not be a team player at all. I knew I couldn't help him become one. I knew it. I knew that it would take me too much time to help him find his curiosity again, help him have his spark in his heart once again. But I've seen so many people who looked like they weren't team players, but then you provide a good feedback for the team where they led some piece or where they did something good for the team, and you praise them well, and they burn after that in the proper way.
Yeah, that's a good trick. Like when you, especially when you can, target their motivation. So if the person is motivated for the achievement, and then you let them do that on themselves, they're so motivated. Like the dopamine level rises up, and like they're very engaged. They want to jump into another journey. So if you handle that well, yeah, you will be able to help people find their motivation. Okay.
So it's a matter of your budget, I would say. It's a matter of your budget. If you have enough strength, if you have willpower, if you have time, I would say you could help pretty much anyone, but we're always limited in that. So if you are limited in budget, follow Vladimir's advice, read the book. It's good.
Yeah.
Lencioni is a very good author.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go further. So let's say we hired, like, I don't know, 3 engineers right away. What do you do next? Like you haven't achieved anything, right? So you just started gathering requirements, maybe writing some code, maybe draw a couple of diagrams about your principal design and so on. Like, what do you do as a manager to actually help them build this initial bond?
I would bring them the client. I would bring them someone either resembling the client, let's say customer support specialist, customer success manager, but I would be better off if I brought them the client, someone who is actually going to be benefiting from their work. And I would ask them to work with the client on something ridiculously small, but valuable, to get almost instant reward. So let's say if we are helping, I'm not sure, pizza delivery, let's make them not the full app, but just the Excel spreadsheet where they can write down the orders, something which helps them right now. And the client would say thank you to the team. If that happens, the team's purpose is reinforced even more. And it is very rarely happening for some strange reason. Companies most often don't bring clients to the teams. And you know what? We had this focus group in Badu years ago when I used to work there. And one of the members of the focus group was saying that she was using our app. And she said, blimey, it's so good. It actually helped him with a few dates.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
My folks in the team were like, oh, wow, we are seeing a live person who is saying that she's using the app and she's happy with that.
Yeah,
and after that, any negative feedback from the managers, like, ha, whatever, clients use us, let's make it better.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, yeah, I mean, that's a big surprise that like people don't see their clients at all. They don't have the feedback. They're just writing code committed to GitHub, and that's it. That's
as if we are creating the blueprints for some manufacturing facility which we are not aware of, which is somewhere like miles away.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is a critical thing for the new team to have something, somebody resembling the client to show them the purpose materialized, right? So
yeah.
Okay, imagine you have a conflict. Imagine like you have like one team member saying like, hey, I created the solution design and we should all follow it. Like, what do you do?
I try to make it as rational as possible. I think that engineers are quite used to seeing rational explanations of things. Engineering is all about rationality anyway. So I always propose to write down the arguments with pros and cons. And if the person is saying any other solution is bad, my solution is good, I ask this person to weigh other solutions properly, to find, like, to be a devil's advocate to your own work, because we perceive criticism from others much harder than we perceive criticism from ourselves. And if we're doing this research and we're seeing that actually some other solutions are not as bad as I thought, and the only thing for the manager here is to ask this person to weigh other options, to prepare and to come with the analysis, let's call it SWOT analysis, whatever, just rational analysis of your proposal and some others, other possible solutions to this problem. If the person brings more diversity in his own work or their own work, then the solution to the problem will be better, even if it is the very solution they were proposing in the very first place.
So you're saying we need to reflect more on our work.
Yeah, I would say that we rarely think enough before doing anything. And that it doesn't mean that we need to produce a material blueprint or technical specification for a year and only then start working. But I would say that having this technical design of a feature, not consisting only of my solution, how it's good, but of different ways. Because as I've said, any problem can be solved in many ways. You're well aware of trees of this approach to solving intellectual and engineering puzzles and engineering problems. They always try to come up with solutions which are cheaper or which are more elegant. So if we provoke everyone on the team to find more elegant solutions, it benefits the team and the people, and the conflicts might go away. And if your team is strong and mature enough, they can do it in pairs. If you think that Bob and Alice will not hurt each other while working on a single proposal to a single problem, then they might work together and actually brainstorm something, come up with crazy ideas, and then figure out the cost and benefit of each one of them.
Okay, how do you think the team, the proper good team that we mentioned here, should work on the system design or solution design? Because like typically what we either have a tech lead or architect, like whatever you call it, who is just prepare the whole design and then come up and say like, hey, you can comment, but I'm not really going to change anything. or the teams are just going like without any plan. They just let's write some code. Like what
I
from
would
your
say both of
perspective?
these. I would say both of these options are not as good as possible. I would say that, as we discussed, the manager is the person who knows, well, hopefully, who knows more about the processes and sociology and psychology and everything. Architects are the people who know more about the architecture and the cost of ownership and the cost of change and all those very interesting and very important concepts in our industry. So if architects or anyone who knows better about this particular topic, if they try to teach the team to come up with better solutions, this solves both problems. They are not siloed, the architects are not siloed into some ivory tower of architects. And the team doesn't do something crazy because they don't know how certain engineering solution could go wrong in a year. They might refuse it. But if the architect brings them more information and helps them and coaches them, then it's much better. But this demands some decent communication skills from everyone. That's one thing. And some decent culture. As you say, if the architect perceives themselves as the boss or the owner of the architecture, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, exactly. How do you get rid of it? Because like imagine the following situation. You have the team, you're like half a year into the project. You obviously had people, like maybe all the team, maybe a couple of people who were who had the initiative to design the solution in the first place. And then eventually they will have this feeling of the ownership. They created the thing, right? It's like their job, and people have very hard time dissolving their job from themselves. So they perceive the critic of the work as the critic of themselves, and that's a problem. Like how do you disintegrate this ownership that inevitably created by the mere work in people? Like how do you treat it?
First, what I try to do is to explain people that code is a liability. That what we have produced, what we've just produced, is going to disappear or change. We are not producing something to be set in stone. I just try to explain it again and again and again by showing that I'm throwing away my code, or my fellow colleagues who worked hard on 1 year projects, they throw the code away or they change it or they refactor it. I also help people to understand that whenever they are working on something, they can refactor something around it. So I bring the habit of refactoring and the culture of thinking about the code as the liability, because the ideal system doesn't exist but solves the problem. So the ideal system is when there is just, the good system is when there is just a few lines of code doing the work, rather than a few thousand lines of code doing the work. And it's very simple to explain. If we have 2,000 lines of code doing one thing, it's much harder and much more costly to sustain, to support this code, or compared to the situation when we have just 5 lines of code doing the same. So as soon as people understand the economics of the code, sustaining the code and maintaining the code and fixing the code and refactoring the code, and as soon as they get into this habit of refactoring, and as soon as they understand that the code is liability, they do not connect that much to the code they produce. They will be connected to the approaches they use. That is for sure. That is much harder problem. As you've mentioned, if someone created a good architectural solution matching the requirements and conditions and constraints of the market and the system and the people at that point of time, it's going to be very hard for this person to abandon it. That is always the case. I have no good solution to that other than just constantly refactor the architecture as well, which I don't know how to do yet.
Yeah, some kind of evolutionary architecture. So basically you're saying that part of the problem is the lack of communication from the manager side and explaining like how the assets that we're creating are liabilities at the same time. And partially this is a problem of lacking the experience of seeing the systems being rewritten because you know the circumstances changed and the current architecture doesn't fit it anymore, and we need to do something about it. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's talk about the following thing. Like, imagine we have a team. It's like 3 years old. It doesn't get new people, so it's like all set it done. There are proper relationships between the people. What can happen? Like, what engineering manager should look for in order not to have the team deteriorated to the working group?
Yeah.
Like, given the manager doesn't make any critical mistakes on their own.
I would say that a manager should still provoke people to meet each other. That's something we quite often forget. Like in my company, we have this random coffee thing. We all live in different places. And I must admit, I reminded myself today that I skipped a few, and it's a bad thing. Because as soon as we lose touch, what psychology calls relational interactions, relational interactions, I think, yeah. So interactions outside of work. As soon as we lose it, we tend to alienate with people as persons. And so we still are human beings. And if I hate some person, I would refrain from accepting pretty much anything irrationally, for pretty much anything from that person. And so the manager, I think, should sometimes provoke or provide conditions for people to meet. And it's easy to do with random coffee, with meetings offline sometimes. We went with our Georgian team, we went to karting once. It was a very good and pleasant experience. We went to eat some shashliki and barbecue and whatever. So I think that is one of the things that managers miss quite a lot. If they see a remote team working well, why bother? Everything is okay. Let's not do anything. Let's not fly to Turkey or Dubai or whatever. Let's not spend the budget. Let's spend it on something else. But I think it's very important, and there is plenty of research showing that if I know that you, Vladimir, are a good person, and I can only know it when I touch you, kind of handshake with you properly, when we drink together, when we have a fire together, when we do stuff like that, human stuff, then we will work better with you. It's irrational, and it still is very innate to our system.
I think it's rational, but it's so deeply rooted in the nature and in the past history of humanity, when we used to gather around the fire.
Oh yeah.
And resting after the very very difficult day, hunting big animals and trying to find something to eat, and so on. We definitely lack a lot of that. And I remember this interview of Baruch Sadogursky, where he described like how he burned out, and then how he lacked this part of the celebration of achieving something. After long periods of time, we have to have some time to relax from this stress, from this achievement, and so on. This is by the way, this is a good thing from the dopamine perspective, because like when you peaked the dopamine, you don't want to try to achieve the same peak. You have some rest period, so that because after a big peak, you have a big depletion in the dopamine, and the baseline drops, and you don't want it to drop very much. So you want it to get to the previous levels. And
there is very good research on team so-called external activities. I read 3 or 4 research papers on that. One actually, and I'm honest, suggests acting or playing music or doing something very different to work, but with the same team. Get a coach, acting coach, musical coach, singing coach, go karaoke, go do whatever, which is not bad, but something good, and have this different experience with people. Eat meat prepared by the fire if no one objects, if there are no vegetarians or whatever. So do something very external to work, and this will flood you with energy, with proper energy, and this ego depletion will go away.
That's a good thing. So basically, team buildings are not bad way, right? So those they should be conducted properly, because you can screw them up easily. But
and you know what? There are managers who perceive and understand team buildings as the solution to team problems, which they are not. They are not solutions to conflicts, because if you have team structured so that there are 2 subgroups, one hating each other, on the Team building, they will just drink separately. They will just have fun separately. You won't have anything solved.
Yeah, that's very true. So yeah, you need a team in the first place to have a team building. It's like a
Yes.
matter to just know each other better and have some
Mhm.
social interaction, not resolving the conflicts. Okay. What I wanted to ask, like you mentioned that one important thing to get the team together is the social interactions, right? And talking to each other, like for the topics other than work. What I wanted to highlight as well is that like the tendency that people can change the interest with the time. So how should the manager pay attention to that?
I wouldn't say that the manager should serious attention to interests. I would say that if the manager wants the team to be cohesive and wants to be really well connected, I would say that it is good if the manager praises different interests or creates this culture that team members can have different interests. That would be a good thing. So let's say we had in our team, we had one person just being hired, and he plays jazz. Solomon plays jazz. I'm so interested to go and listen to how he plays jazz. And if I had budget for external activities like that, to fly to the New York and to see him with my team, I would be delighted. That would be just great.
Yeah, but I'm not speaking about like out of work interest. I'm speaking about like professional interest. Like imagine we have a group of people, like a team. They're working good, but with the tasks they're solving, their technical abilities grow obviously, and they need new challenges, right? And somebody is, you know, doing more, like is more engaged, and eventually this person grows, and now they pretend for bigger challenges. So for example, not the challenges of a single team, but a group of teams. And obviously if you take the person out of the team, that's the different team. And like how do you do that?
But this person can always teach others. You were mentioning that you have this community of practice. If the person can help others in their challenges, he is sharing their challenges. So he's just having fun, helping others, reinforcing other team knowledges, improving other teams' knowledge, and having fun. Again, as he wanted or she wanted more challenge, there she has it.
Yeah, but that affects the team dynamics, right? So the person, well, the person does not feel like that he or she is doing the same job anymore, and they strive for new challenges. They're kind of getting a little bit bored on the team. They're not engaged anymore in the work of this particular team. So the person can overgrow the challenges. So
maybe I just maybe it's my experience, but I've seen so many teams, well, not so many, maybe a few teams where engineering managers reported this problem to me, and we found ways to do things inside or outside. So the person could still, if the person still shares the passion and the purpose of the team, of the company, this person, I think, will stay if they find the channel, the way to channel their desire for the challenge, to put this desire to the channel for the use of others. Teach others, give talks, write articles. There are ways to show the world how good you are, help the world with how good you are.
Okay, that's interesting solution. Yeah. Okay, so we're running out of time. So like I think that's it. Yeah, we discussed a lot. Thank you very much. We will include all the links down below.
Yes.
Please don't forget to leave a like on this particular video. Yeah, because I personally enjoyed it.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe for the channel. It helps a lot to show this video to other people, and like if you find it useful, that's a good way to help spread it out. Thank you very much. Yeah, see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you. Bye.